Jacob lived on the edge of the human colony on planet Virelia. His home was a rusty shack surrounded by broken machines, old spaceship parts, and piles of scrap metal. He worked as a mechanic, fixing anything he could for food or trade. People called him Junkman Jacob, but he didn't care. He liked the quiet life, no trouble, no noise, but that quiet broke one night. It was past midnight, and Jacob was closing his workshop when he heard it. A soft cry. Like a small child, it was weak, shaky, and full of fear. At first he thought it was just a sound in the wind. Virelia's winds often made strange noises. But then it came again. A real cry. Jacob grabbed his old plasma light and stepped into the junkyard. The cry came from the back near the rusted cargo pods. His boots crunched over metal and his breath formed small clouds in the cold night air. "Hello?" he called out. "Is someone there?" No answer. Just the cry again, quieter this time. He moved faster, pushing aside scrap metal and cables until he saw it, an old escape pod, broken and half buried in junk. The door was cracked open, and something moved inside. Jacob knelt down, shining his light inside the pod. Two tiny faces stared back at him. Children, alien children. The girl was small with purple skin, glowing blue eyes, and long black hair tangled like wires. She held a smaller boy in her arms. His skin was gray-blue, his body shaking. He looked sick, weak, barely awake. The girl growled softly, baring tiny teeth, ready to fight, but her arms trembled and her eyes were full of tears. "It's okay," Jacob said softly. "I won't hurt you." She didn't move, but she didn't attack either. Her body shielded the boy like a wild animal protecting her cub. Jacob slowly placed his light on the ground and held up his hands. "I can help," he said. "Food, water, warmth." Her eyes blinked, and after a long pause, she nodded. Jacob carried them inside, one in each arm. They weighed almost nothing. The boy had a fever, and the girl's skin was covered in bruises and dirt. He laid them gently on a cot and gave them water. They drank like they hadn't tasted anything in days. He warmed up a bowl of soup and handed it to the girl. She didn't speak, just stared at him with careful eyes. Then slowly, she fed the boy first before eating herself. "Do you have names?" Jacob asked. She looked at him, then pointed to herself. "Lena," she said quietly. Then to the boy. "Mako." "Lena and Mako," Jacob repeated with a smile. "I'm Jacob." They didn't smile back, but they didn't cry anymore. That night, Jacob made a small bed for them beside the heater. He watched them sleep, curled up together like kittens, safe for now. But his mind raced with questions. Where did they come from? Why were they alone? What happened to their family? The escape pod outside was alien. He couldn't tell the species, but the design looked old, damaged in battle. Inside the pod were broken wires, a shattered screen, and burned controls. But one thing caught his eye, a strange symbol scratched into the metal wall. It looked like a bird with 6 wings holding a glowing star. Something about it felt important, powerful, like it meant something more. Jacob touched it, and the metal glowed faintly for a second before going dark again. Weird. He covered the pod with old tarps and returned to the shack. He didn't know what he was getting into, but his heart told him he did the right thing. The next morning, the kids were still asleep when Jacob stepped outside to clear the yard. The air was cold, the sky gray. He stretched his back and looked at the horizon. Then he saw it, a small black drone hovering far away in the sky, unmoving, watching. Its red light blinked once, then vanished into the clouds. Jacob felt a chill, not from the cold, but from something deeper. Someone else was looking for those kids, and maybe they weren't just orphans after all. Lena woke up first, blinking slowly in the morning light. Her brother Miko was curled against her, still sleeping, his skin a little less pale than before. The warmth of the heater wrapped around them like a blanket, and for the first time in many nights there was no sound of explosions, no running, no fear. She sat up quietly, eyes scanning the room. Jacob sat nearby, sipping something hot from a mug. His rough hands were busy fixing a broken light drone. But when he noticed her awake, he smiled. "Good morning, Lena," he said gently. "You're safe now." Safe. The word felt strange, heavy, like it had been missing for a long time. She nodded slowly, not sure if she believed it yet, but she wanted to. Jacob gave her a piece of fruit and some warm bread. She took it carefully, as if expecting it to vanish. After a few bites, she woke Miko and fed him too. The little boy smiled, weakly, his first smile in days. Later that morning, Jacob loaded his old hover truck with spare parts and scrap metal. "I have to go to town," he said. "Sell some things, buy food, medicine for Miko." Lena stepped forward, panic in her eyes. "You're leaving us?" she asked, her voice shaking. Jacob knelt beside her and looked her in the eyes. "Never without you," he said. "You're coming with me." Her body relaxed, just a little. The town of Nuvos was small, built from metal and stone, a mix of human settlers and a few alien families. As Jacob drove through the dusty streets, people waved, some curious, some suspicious when they saw the alien children with him. A few whispered behind his back. Others crossed the street. He didn't care. At the market, Jacob traded parts for food, medical patches, and clean clothes, while Lena kept Miko close, eyes darting around the crowd. They had learned not to trust strangers, not after what happened near. The end of the market street, an alien teacher named Kalo approached. He was old with blue skin and silver eyes. He bent down and smiled at the children. "What are their names?" Kalo asked. "Lena and Miko," Jacob replied. "Found them in my junkyard. They were hiding in an escape pod." Kalo blinked, then looked at the children again. His face changed. "Do they remember where they came from?" he asked slowly. "They don't talk much," Jacob said. "Why?" The old teacher pointed at the simple drawing in Miko's hands. The boy had been sketching in a small notepad Jacob gave him. A bird with 6 wings holding a glowing star. That symbol. Kalo whispered. "It hasn't been seen in years." "It belongs to the Thalorian royal family," Jacob frowned. "Thalorian? They were wiped out in the war 10 years ago, weren't they?" "Yes," Kalo said, "which is why this changes everything." Kalo begged Jacob to keep the children hidden. "There are people," he said, "bad ones, who would do anything to control royal blood." Jacob drove home faster than usual, his hands tight on the wheel. He didn't speak, didn't want to scare the children, but his mind was racing. That night, Jacob scanned the escape pod again. He found something he had missed, a data crystal hidden deep in a crack. He plugged it into an old reader. The screen flickered to life. A blurry message played. An alien woman, crying, speaking in Thalorian, Lena. Sat up straight when she heard the voice, "Mother," she whispered, eyes full of tears. Jacob didn't understand the language, but he understood the emotion. The woman said goodbye, said to run, to stay hidden, to find safety among humans. Her final words were clear even in translation. "Protect the heirs. They carry the crown's light." Jacob turned off the screen. He looked at the children, now holding hands tightly. Lena was trying to stay strong, but her lip trembled. "I promise," Jacob said softly. "No one will take you from me. I'll protect you no matter what." He didn't see himself as a hero. He was just a junk mechanic, a man with too many regrets. But when Lena hugged him around the waist and Miko called him Papa for the first time, something inside Jacob changed. He wasn't alone anymore. They weren't either. That night, while the children slept peacefully, Jacob stood outside with his rifle and stared at the sky. The same red drone blinked again, far above the clouds, watching. He didn't move, didn't hide. He whispered to it like a challenge. "Come if you want, but you'll have to go through me first." And deep in the shadows of space, someone was listening. The days passed quietly, but Jacob knew peace wouldn't last forever. Lena and Miko were growing stronger, eating better, sleeping longer. Lena even smiled once when Jacob showed her how to repair a rusted engine. Miko loved to sit on the floor, with a wrench in one hand and a drawing stick in the other, sketching strange symbols while pretending to fix bolts. But every time Jacob looked at those drawings, especially the 6-winged bird, his stomach turned. One afternoon, while the kids napped, Jacob visited the colony archives, a place few people bothered with anymore. Dust covered the consoles, but he powered up the old system and searched for Thalorian history. He found it long ago. The Thalorian Empire ruled parts of the galaxy with elegance and power. They were peaceful, wise, and known for their glowing golden crowns, ancient living artifacts that chose rulers by heart, not by birth. But during the Great Uprising, the royal family vanished, their home world burned, and all records of their survivors were lost except... Now 2 children, right in Jacob's shack, carried that same crest, that same royal symbol, and maybe more. Back at home, Jacob showed Lena the screen from the archives. Her eyes widened, and she touched the image of the Thalorian crown. "Mama wore this," she said quietly. "And Papa said it would one day glow for me." Miko, too young to explain, reached for Jacob's hand and whispered. "They wanted to take it, but we ran." Jacob knelt beside them, his heart pounding. "Who wanted it, Lena?" he asked softly. She looked down, her voice like a shadow. Men in black armor, no faces, just cold hands and fire. Before Jacob could ask more, the ground outside trembled, a heavy thump, then another. Jacob rushed to the window. A large figure walked through the junkyard, slow, deliberate, armored in dark plates, red eyes glowing behind its helmet. A bounty hunter. Jacob didn't wait. He grabbed the children and opened the hidden hatch under the floorboards. "Stay quiet no matter what," he whispered. "Don't move until I come back." He sealed the hatch and grabbed his old shock rifle from the wall. It hadn't fired in years, but it still hummed with power. Outside, the bounty hunter stood, silently scanning the area. Jacob stepped out, his voice firm. "You lost?" he asked. The figure didn't reply. It raised its arm, scanning Jacob's face, then turned slowly toward the escape pod still hidden under tarps. "I don't know what you're looking for," Jacob said, "but there's nothing here for you." The hunter spoke at last, its voice mechanical and cold. "Surrender the Thalorian heirs," Jacob fired. The blast hit the bounty hunter square in the chest, but it barely flinched. It lunged forward, knocking Jacob to the ground. Pain exploded in his ribs, but he rolled, grabbed a pipe and struck the hunter's leg. Sparks flew, and the thing staggered. Suddenly, a second blast struck the hunter's side. Burning through the armor, Kalo, the old alien teacher, stood in the distance holding a fusion pistol. "Run, Jacob," he shouted. "I'll cover you." Jacob didn't argue. He rushed back, pulled open the hatch, and grabbed the kids. "We're leaving," he said. "Now." They jumped into his hover truck and he sped away through the night, the engines roaring. Lena looked back at the junkyard fading in the distance, eyes full of fear and questions. Kalo had risked everything, and Jacob didn't know if he was still alive. Hours later, they stopped in a quiet cave near the old mining ruins. Jacob wrapped Miko in a blanket and lit a small fire. His hands shook, but his voice stayed calm. "We'll be okay," he said. "I'll keep you safe no matter what." Lena reached into her pocket and pulled out a thin metallic disc. She held it out. "This was Mama's," she said. "She told me never to lose it." Jacob took the disc. It pulsed gently with golden light. When he touched it, images flashed in his mind. A throne, a great hall, a burning city, and a baby girl placed inside a pod. The memory wasn't his, but it felt real. The disc was alive, storing not just memories, but truth. Jacob finally understood. This wasn't just about bloodlines or crowns, this was about legacy, war, and survival. He looked at Lena, her small hand still in his. "They're not just after you," he whispered. "They're after what you carry, what you are." Lena nodded, her voice steady now. "Mama said the crown will choose again when the time is right." Jacob looked up at the stars through the cave's broken roof. Somewhere out there, people were hunting them. Ships were flying toward them. Decisions were being made. But here, by the fire, a mechanic and 2 orphaned royals were rewriting history, and soon the galaxy would know they were not forgotten. They were still alive. Jacob didn't sleep that night. The cave was quiet, but his mind was loud. He kept his rifle close and his ears open. The children were curled beside the fire. But even in their sleep, their little bodies trembled. He couldn't let them keep running forever. They needed protection. Not just from bounty hunters, but from the whole galaxy. In the early morning light, Jacob made a decision. They would go underground, not just hide, but disappear, and there was only one place that could help. The Iron Veil Outpost, an old rebel base buried under the ruins of a collapsed mining colony. Jacob had once done repair work there during the last war. The rebels were gone now, or so people believed, but he had contacts, old friends who owed him. He loaded Lena and Miko into the hover truck, covered them in old blankets, and started the long journey across the barren salt plains. The wind howled, the sky turned red with dust, and strange shapes moved under the sands. But Jacob kept driving, one hand on the wheel, the other gripping his shock rifle. After hours of silence, Lena spoke. "Where are we going?" Jacob looked at her through the mirror. "Somewhere safe. Safer than anywhere else." She nodded, but her eyes stayed on the horizon, watching for shadows. By evening, they reached a canyon wall marked by nothing but rocks and silence. Jacob stepped out, walked to a large boulder and knocked 3 times, then twice more. A crack opened. A glowing eye scanned his face. Then a voice whispered through the speaker. "You've got nerve coming back, Junkman." Jacob smiled. "You still owe me, Braca. I need help." The door opened with a hiss and they entered the Iron Veil. The base was deep, hidden far below ground. Old lights flickered and machines buzzed. Rebels in old armor walked the halls, surprised to see Jacob alive, more surprised to see children. Holding his hands, Braca was tall, thick-skinned, part human, part something else. He led them to a room with warm beds and hot food. "You're lucky we're still breathing down here," he said, "but why bring royal trouble to my doorstep?" Jacob didn't answer right away. He looked at Lena and Miko, then back at Braca. "Because they're not just royal, they're kids, and I won't let anyone take them." Braca sighed. "You always were a stubborn fool." That night, Jacob fixed power lines in exchange for their stay. He worked while the children slept. His hands bled, but he didn't stop. He knew the only way to keep them safe was to stay useful, but even the deepest cave couldn't stop the signal. Far away, in a dark space station above Verelia, a masked commander received a transmission. The red drone had found traces of Thalorian DNA near the canyon. The message was short: "Target located, preparing strike team." Back in the outpost, strange things began to happen. Doors that had stayed locked for years now opened when Lena walked past. Machines lit up when Miko touched them. A glowing panel near the ancient control room blinked for the first time in a decade. Braca stared. "What are these kids?" he whispered. Jacob had no answer, only a feeling that the galaxy was waking up around them, and the children were at the center of it. Lena stood in the middle of the control chamber, her eyes glowing faintly gold. "The crown remembers," she whispered, a phrase she had spoken before in her sleep. Now she said it awake. A low hum filled the room. Braca backed away. That thing was connected to old royal technology. We never got it to work. Now it worked because the rightful heirs were here, but time was running out. The next morning, an alarm rang through the outpost. A message played on repeat. Unidentified. Ships entering atmosphere. Jacob ran to the surface with Braca. They looked up and saw them. 3 dark ships moving like sharks through the sky, cloaked and deadly. "They found us," Braca said, voice tight. Jacob turned. "Get everyone below. Lock the upper doors. I'll hold them off." "You can't. Take on 3 strike ships alone," Braca growled. Jacob looked back once, then smiled. "I'm not alone." He rushed to the mech hangar, where a broken mining exosuit still sat. He had repaired it months ago, just in case. Now he climbed inside, the machine humming to life around him. As the first enemy troops landed, Jacob marched out in the old mech, a massive metal beast with welding arms and reinforced shields. Children watched from a monitor deep below. Lena pressed her hand to the glass. "Come back," she whispered. "Please come back." Outside, Jacob raised his weapon, his voice calm. "If you want them," he said to the approaching enemies, "you'll have to go through me," and the sky exploded with light. The ground shook as the battle raged above. The Iron Veil outpost trembled under the force of falling debris and echoing blasts. Inside, the rebels ran to their defense stations, alarms flashing red across every wall. But down in the lower levels, two small children sat side by side watching a flickering screen. Lena held Miko's hand tightly. Her lips whispered the same words again and again. Please keep him safe. Please come back. Outside, Jacob fought like a man who had nothing left to lose, or maybe like someone who had finally found something worth protecting. The old mining mech was slow but powerful, and Jacob knew every bolt of it. He slammed one armored fist into a strike drone, smashing it to pieces. The second he blasted with the plasma cutter, burning through its black shell, but they kept coming inside. The command room. Braca watched the fight through shaky monitors. He's buying us time, he growled. But he can't win alone. Then something strange happened. The lights flickered, not from damage, but from power. Building up inside the base, old machines long dead began to hum softly. Doors glowed with forgotten energy, and a long sealed chamber clicked open behind. The command deck. Lena stood, her body pulled toward the glowing hallway like it called to her. Miko followed, silent, curious. They walked slowly, guided by light that came from nowhere. Inside the chamber stood a platform made of crystal and gold. Floating above it was a broken crown, cracked but still shining. Lena stepped forward, and the crown floated down. Braca ran after them, stopping short at the door. His eyes widened. That's not just any crown, he whispered. That's the heart of Thaylor, the living artifact of the royal line. Miko looked up at his sister. Is it really ours? I don't know, she said softly. But it remembers us. The crown pulsed once, then slowly floated toward Lena's chest. It didn't land on her head, yet, but hovered close, like it was waiting. Jacob's voice crackled through the speakers, his breathing heavy. They broke my right leg, but I'm still holding them, Braca. Tell the kids, tell them I'm proud. No, Lena whispered. No more running. She stepped onto the platform, and in that moment everything changed. The base lit up like a starship. Walls shifted, revealing weapons, shields, and defenses that had been asleep for years. The rebels stared in shock. Some fell to their knees, recognizing the light of the old empire. The outpost had accepted her. The base itself remembered the royal blood above ground. The enemy ships began to shake. Targeting systems went dark. Turrets failed. Their soldiers panicked as the earth opened up below them and swallowed their landing gear. Defense drones rose from hidden doors and blasted them from the skies. Jacob watched, blinking through cracked goggles. What the hell is going on? He muttered. Braca's voice laughed through the comm. Your kid just woke up an empire. Jacob lowered the mech's arms and fell to one knee, smoke rising from the machine's back. His body ached. Metal pierced his side. But he smiled. He knew they were safe. For now, later in the healing bay, Jacob lay on a cot, his side patched with foam, his leg stiff in a brace. Lena walked in, her small hand holding the glowing crown gently against her chest. You came back, Jacob said, his voice dry but warm. Lena nodded. You didn't leave us. I told you, he whispered. I'm not going anywhere. Miko crawled up, beside him, placing his tiny hand over Jacob's heart. You're not just our protector, he said. You're our father now. Jacob looked at them, his eyes filled with something deeper than pain. Love. They'll keep coming. Braca said as he entered the room. Now that the crown has awakened, the royal families across the stars will know. Some will want to help others. Will want control. Jacob nodded slowly. Then we better teach these kids to stand strong. But they're just children, Braca said. Jacob smiled. Yes, but with hearts like these, they're stronger than any king I've ever known. That night, Lena placed the crown on the table, not on her head. Not yet, she whispered. Not until I'm ready. And the crown did not glow. It simply waited, as if it understood, because even royal blood must learn to grow, and Jacob, the junkyard man who became a shield, would be the one to teach them how. Days passed, but peace did not return. Inside the Iron Veil outpost, the rebels worked around the clock, strengthening defenses, hiding energy signals, preparing for war. News spread across the outer systems. The Thalorian. Crown lives, some believed it, others laughed, but many feared what it meant. Lena kept the crown near her, never wearing it, only touching it when she was alone. Sometimes it glowed gently, as if listening. Other times, it stayed still, silent like a sleeping star. Jacob watched her from a distance, still healing from his wounds. He walked with a limp now, but his eyes were sharper than ever. He knew something was coming, something bigger than bounty hunters or strike teams. One evening, a large transport ship arrived at the canyon gate. It bore no weapons, no soldiers, only messengers dressed in flowing robes and silver bands, royal emissaries. Braca met them with cold eyes. "We don't host kings here," he said, but the lead emissary bowed politely. "We are not here to rule, we are here to witness. The crown must choose its path." The next day, the outpost turned silent. Everyone gathered in the old council chamber. Rebels, mechanics, even children stood side by side watching. In the center stood a stone pedestal, cracked from age. On it lay the crown, resting, waiting. The emissaries stepped forward, one by one. Each placed their hands on the crown, whispered old words, and waited. Nothing happened. The crown remained still, unmoved, unimpressed. Then Lena walked forward. She held her breath, touched the edge of the crown gently. It glowed faintly, just for a second, but then faded again. The room murmured. "She's not ready." One whispered. "She's still just a child," said another. Then the eldest emissary, a tall woman with glowing green eyes, spoke loudly. "The crown will not choose a soul that is uncertain. It waits for someone who holds both fire and love, not just blood." Jacob stood at the back, arms crossed, watching quietly. Suddenly, the crown lifted from the pedestal. It rose slowly into the air, spinning gently. Pulsing with golden light, the room went silent. Every eye watched in awe. The crown floated above the crowd, then stopped, right in front of Jacob. Gasps filled the room. Jacob's eyes widened. No, that can't be right," he whispered. The crown hovered close, then lightly touched his forehead. A flash of warm light spread through the chamber. Machines hummed, the walls lit up again. The emissary fell to her knees. "The crown has made its choice." "But I'm not royal," Jacob said, backing away. "I'm just a junkyard man. I fix broken things. I don't lead empires." The crown glowed brighter. Lena ran to him, grabbing his hand. "Maybe that's why it chose you," she said. "You fixed us too." Mako nodded beside her. "You never wanted power, Papa. You only wanted to keep us safe." Braca stepped forward, shaking his head with a smirk. "Looks like the universe has a weird sense of humor, huh?" Jacob looked at everyone, then down at the crown in his hands. "If this is real," he said slowly, "then I don't want to be a king, but I'll be something better." "What?" Braca asked. "A guardian," Jacob replied. "A shield for these kids and a voice for those who have none." The emissaries bowed low. "Then we shall follow your voice." Later that night, alone in the quiet of his room, Jacob sat with the crown beside him. He looked at it for a long time, thinking about the path ahead. He remembered the junkyard, the silence, the crying pod, the first time Lena growled at him, in fear, and the first time Meko called him Papa. He never asked for any of this, but maybe it had been waiting for him all along. Behind him, Lena entered quietly, holding 2 mugs of warm tea. She sat beside him, resting her head on his. Are you scared?" she asked softly. "Terrified," Jacob whispered with a small laugh. "But I've got you and Meko. That's enough for me." The crown pulsed once more, soft and golden. It didn't need a throne. It had chosen its place, not on a head, but in the hands of a man who understood the weight of love. A week had passed since the crown chose Jacob, but the galaxy had changed forever. Whispers spread across systems. A human, a common mechanic, had been chosen by the Thalorian crown. Some called it a miracle. Others called it an insult to royal blood. But most just called it hope. The Iron Veil outpost had become more than a hideout. It was now a symbol, a place where humans and aliens stood side by side. Rebels, traitors, diplomats, all came to see the man who never wanted power, yet carried the light of the lost empire. And through it all, Jacob stayed the same. He spent his days walking the halls with Meko on his shoulders, fixing broken wires, teaching rebels how to repair engines. He still slept in his old bunk, still drank strong tea from a cracked mug, still made sure Lena and Meko brushed their teeth before bed. One morning, Lena approached him with serious eyes. She wore a simple tunic, her hair tied back, the crown floating silently beside her. "Papa," she said, "the emissaries want me to go with them. They say I need training to become a proper heir." Jacob paused, putting down his tools. "And what do you want?" he asked. She hesitated, then looked away. "I want to stay with you and Meko." He smiled gently, pulling her close. "Then stay. The galaxy can wait. You're not a queen yet. You're still my little girl." She hugged him tightly, the crown glowing faintly behind her as if it agreed. That evening, a large meeting was held in the underground chamber. Lights flickered, voices echoed. Braca stood beside Jacob, reading a message from the outer colonies. "They want you to come," Braca said. "To speak to the council, represent the heirs, guide a new peace." Jacob raised an eyebrow. "Me? I'm not a speaker, I'm not a politician." Braca grinned. "Exactly why they trust you." Jacob looked at Lena and Meko sitting on the bench, giggling over glowing fruit slices. He rubbed his neck and sighed. "Fine, I'll go, but only if the kids come too." So they traveled. Jacob, Lena, and Meko boarded a small cruiser, painted silver and red, gifted by the last neutral planet. They didn't take guards or a fleet, only a bag of tools, some warm clothes, and a worn-out storybook Meko refused to sleep without. When they arrived at the Great Galactic Council, the entire hall went silent. 1,000 alien eyes watched as the small family stepped into the light. Jacob didn't wear armor, robes, or a crown. He wore his old work jacket, patched at the elbows, grease stains on his hands. He stood in front of the council and said only this: "I didn't save these kids because of their blood. I saved them because no one else would. And I'll keep doing it because that's what a real father does." Silence followed. Then applause, not loud at first, but growing, spreading, echoing across the chamber like thunder. The vote was taken, and the results were clear. The council accepted Jacob as guardian of the crown, a new title, never used before, one born from the heart, not from law. Later that night, back in their ship, Jacob sat under the stars with Lena by his side and Meko asleep in his lap. The stars stretched wide, endless, but he didn't feel small anymore. "Do you think Mama and Papa would be proud of me?" Lena asked quietly. Jacob looked at her, his voice low and warm. "I know they would, but I think they'd be even prouder knowing you chose to love instead of rule, to heal instead of hurt." She smiled, her small fingers brushing the crown that floated beside them. Suddenly, the ship's comms beeped. A message came through, distorted, faint, but clear enough. It was a distress signal, a refugee ship, carrying alien children lost and cold, fleeing from another rising war. Jacob stood up, eyes serious, heart steady. "Set a course," he told the pilot. "We've got more kids to bring home." Lena looked up at him. "Papa, are we going to adopt more?" He grinned. "Only if you help me with bedtime stories." Meko, half asleep, mumbled, "I call top bunk." And just like that, the family who never asked to be chosen became the light for many more. Not because of blood, not because of crowns, but because one man said yes when the galaxy said no. A junk man turned father, a crown without a throne, a shield chosen by love, forever.